This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so in the last session, we were just trying to understand what is shell, what is the environment variable, how is that we can use environment variable, what is the process, how does the process work, how does the process communicate, how do you pass the variables from parent to child, and in that we saw the introduction of what is a shell script, how is that you can invoke shell script, what happens when you invoke a shell script, okay, and the way that you're going to call a shell script. So in that, just to repeat quickly, so any file that you write in which you put some operating system commands, typically called as a shell script, and when you run, it is going to run it using the default shell, which will be the bash. But for any chance, if you want to change to some other shell, and that is where you have to begin your script by saying shebang and the type of shell or the executable. So anything following this or anything following this line in your script is what it is going to run using this as the default shell. Okay. So to get into actual scripting, now like how we created a variable which I was talking about yesterday. So that variable is called as environment variable. Okay, that is because we created a value and stored it in that environment, which is nothing but a process. But when you're writing a script, in the same way, you can create a variable and that will be available only as long as the script is running. Whenever the script starts running, there will be a new process created, and whatever the commands you have given inside it will be running on that process or shell. So as soon as the script gets completed, the shell or process will get completed. So that's the reason you will not be able to use it again. So that way, if you are using a variable which will be specific to the shell, then sometimes we call it as shell variables. Okay, or you can call them as local variables. So now, like how you are creating a variable through your environment, you can also create it through the script, and that will be available only until the script is running. Okay. Now, like how you created the variable on the environment, the same way, if you want to create a variable, you have to say on the left hand side variable name equal to the value that you want to store. So the examples, something like name equal to Adam, or I can also create a variable which can have a alphanumeric value. But as I said yesterday, it cannot begin with a number, or it should not be only number. Okay, then you're going to give a value. So many times, if you note the difference between this, if you are trying to store a number or a numeric value, you can just store it directly. But if you want to store a string, then it's better to give it under the quotes. Okay, and other than that, if you have seen a program, in a program there will be different types of variable, like a separate variable for storing numbers, separate variable for storing string. But in scripting, the advantage over that is there is no type of variables for that. So that way, whatever variable that we generally create, which will store some value, is called as scalar variables. So a scalar variable is nothing but a default type of variable which can store any kind of value, which could be a number or a string or a combination of both. Okay. And if I want to get the value from a variable which is a scalar variable, then I'm going to say dollar variable, right? The name of the variable. So just to see it quickly once again, let me connect to a machine. So now, okay, there are no scripts. So let me create a script called variable.sh or var.sh. Now in this, we'll say bin bash. And now here, if I want to create a variable, like I said, I can give a variable here, or for example, I can also give a value here, which is the number. So now if I want to retrieve, I can just say name equal to dollar name, whereas echo variable one equal to dollar variable one. So now what will it do? Anywhere it sees dollar followed by the variable name, it will try to return the value. Okay. Now to run a shell script, first we need to make sure it has execute permission. Okay. And now I can run it. So you can see it clearly say that the value stored in the dollar name is this. Okay. Now when I have a shell script, okay, now what is it printing? It is printing name equal to Adam. Now I want to print the output as dollar name equal to Adam, so that I will know the value of dollar name is Adam. So now in this, if I give dollar, what will happen? So what will be the output?
Adam equal to Adam.
So it is printing Adam equal to Adam. So this is where, what if you want to get the exact string? Okay. Sometimes if you want, you can use a single quote. Okay. So sometimes when you use a single quote, it will try to give you, but most of the scenarios, if it doesn't work, then all you have to do is you have to do something called as negation. So in Linux, negation means whatever is the actual meaning, you try to reverse. So you do the negation using what? What do you do? Sorry, backslash. Okay. So this way, if you give negation, then what it is going to do is it is going to take out the meaning of dollar, because if you see dollar followed by a string, it is considered as a variable. But now I have negated the dollar, so that means it will consider dollar as dollar itself. Okay. So because of this, it is going to print dollar and name, because it will consider both of them as separate. So now you see it's going to give you the exact way. So this is how, if you want to negate something which is nothing but take away the default meaning of it, then you're going to use the backslash. Okay. So this way, these variables are called as scalar variables, which we are using it within the shell. Now, when you get into real time, it is not possible sometimes to always store everything into a single variable. Okay. Now, let me take example. You are trying to write some script which is going to collect some user data and store it in some database or do something with it. Now, if you are going to store a user data, like I want to store some user data, okay, I have to store his first name, I have to store his second name, I have to store, for example, his location, his age, mobile number, whatever. Now, if I keep creating like 20, 30 variables for that, what will happen is there is that much of memory that is allocated to it, right? Because everything is stored in some memory. So like this, assume if you want to do the same activity for 1,000 users, then assume how much of variable that the shell or that process is going to capture to get everything done. So this is where our scalar variable will not be useful certain times, or you are going to use scalar variable only if you are going to store a single value, like my name or my last name, some number, which is one value. But when you want to store multiple values, then again, when I say multiple values, it could be related, or for me, I know what I am using it for. So any kind of related value that you're going to store, if you are trying to store it together, then that variable is called as array. So array is nothing but collection of variables. Scalar variable is single, or I can put it up in this way. Array is collection of scalar variables. Okay, so that way I can say. So now using array, what you can do, instead of creating one variable and storing one value, I can create one variable called array, which is the type. It is not the name which you are going to give array. The type of variable is array, and internally it will be storing multiple values. Okay. Now, how can it store? So this is where now you consider this. A scalar variable is like a individual home. Okay. So you go to a home and there will be just one door number for that, right? Suppose if you take this building, there is only one door number. But the same thing, if you try to go as an apartment, the building is one, but there will be many houses in it. So each one of them will have a point saying, hey, first floor, this number, they'll be giving an individual number for that. So that will not be the actual door number, especially if you put a post, the building will have a number, but inside the building, there will be some kind of unique number, which we call it as index, like how you have page numbers in your book. Okay, so that way, how the Linux will be storing this is, it will be assigning one memory, but internally in that there will be smaller parts in which multiple values are stored. So that way it's easy to store and easy to retrieve. But if I have to retrieve, then consider the same way like how I said house number, you should know what is the exact index of it. So that is what we call it as index. Okay, so to just represent it, so consider if there is an array in which you have some box like this. Okay, I'm just putting it up. Some values. Suppose here I can store 4 values together. Okay, so let's assume I'm just storing something like this. So now this is one memory location, but internally it has 4 values. So if I want to access this, what we use is something called as index, like a page number. We use something called as index number. And for every actual value, there will be a index number. And the index number will always begin with 0. Okay. So now if you see, the first one will have the index of 0, the next one index of 1, index of 2, index of 3. So now, if earlier if there was a scalar variable, how was that you were accessing it? Assume that I had a variable. If I wanted to access, all you will do is $name, which points to the value. But now, in array, if I say dollar and whatever the variable name that you're using, so it is going to point you to the entire thing, right? But in this, what we need is a particular value. So that is where it is like, okay, in this building, go to first floor or second floor, right? That is how you're going to now use the index number. So if you want to use, then you are going to say dollar, and now in bash, you are going to use the flower bracket. Okay, someone was asking yesterday. So in the bash, you are going to use it. So now, if I want to use the index, then inside the flower bracket, I'm going to say the index number. Okay. For example, if I want the index of 0, then I'm going to say dollar completely flower bracket, and under that, inside the square bracket, I have to give the index number. So if I now say 0, this will return me A. Okay. Same way, if I say index of 1, it is going to point me to B. If I say index of 3, it is going to point me B. So that way, index will always begin with 0 and keeps going on. The same way, sometimes you can do the reverse way also. The reverse way of this is the last one is considered as minus 1, and this is considered as minus 2. This is considered as minus 3. Okay. So sometimes you have many variables. Okay, inside the array there are many values. You don't know how many values are there. Then simply if you say index of -1, it is going to get you the last value. But if not, remember it start always from left to right in the 1 format. So if you recall Git, especially when I was talking about Git stash, I was telling you that the stash stores in the same way. Okay. So since now if you understand in your repository, if you are storing multiple values or multiple backups, it is going to create one stash array, and inside that it is going to store as an index. So this is where when we did the stash, I was telling you that you are going to use the index of 0 or 1. So that is taken from the scripting basically. Okay. Got this? How an array works? So now, if you want to create, okay, this is accessing, but how will I create a array? This is where there are two types you can create. First, if I just say like this, then this is called as scalar variable. Now, instead of that, what I can do is simply I can say array name index equal to value, so that anything on the left hand side becomes the variable, and in case if you give index, it becomes the array's specific index, and anything on the right hand side of the equal is considered as value. So the same thing if I have to represent or create, then I have to create array of 0 equal to what? A. Array of 1 equal to B. So like this I have to give all the value. Got it? So this is what we call it as defining a variable. This is also a defining a variable, but here we are defining the array with a specific index. Got it? Getting it? What is an array? How to create it? So let's see an example with this first. Okay. So I'm creating a file called array.sh. Okay. Is it visible or you want me to change the screen? Back. Oh. Is it better? It's not good. Is this better or white is better?
White is better, Adam.
Okay. So now in this example, what I have done, I am creating a array with index 0 and assigning orange, and index of 1 is apple, index of 2 is grape. And now specifically if I want, if I say dollar name of 0, what will it give? It will give me the first value. If I say dollar name of 1, it is going to give me which one? Apple. Okay. Now mode x array. Okay, that's a mistake. Problem is it is considering dollar name as different, and it is considering 0 1 as different. That is the reason you have to use the bracket. So if you note, by default now, if you say dollar name, what is it giving? It is giving you the first index by default. Okay, so dollar name represents dollar name 0 index. Now if I run, you see, so you can specify a variable. So this is called as defining it, and here you are using it. Okay, clear? Now here, what we are doing is we are assigning one by one, and we are trying to use the value one by one. For certain reasons, what if I want to get all the values? Suppose I want to see all the values which is available in the variable called name. Okay, then there is an option where instead of saying the index number, if you say star or at the rate, it is going to give you all the values that it is stored. Okay, now see, here I'm going to say oh all values, and here say name, and in the square bracket let's say star, finish the square bracket quotation. Okay, so star means what in Linux? Everything, match everything. So that way it is going to match all the indexes and it is going to show you. So now see the difference. So it is printing me all the values separated by space. Got it? So this is how now, in the same way, rather than creating variable one by one, we can also create one array at a shot and put all the values inside it. Okay. So if you want to do in such a way, then when you're creating a variable, you're going to create it in this way. Okay. So now let me do the same. So I will create, so let me delete this, for example. And now if I create, so let's say I'll say name equal to, and in the brackets, I can give space separated, like how it was giving us the earlier message. So I can say orange, purple. Okay. So this is called as again initialization, but your initialization, all the value that is needed for you in one shot. Okay. You see, takes the same way. Yeah. Earlier I was storing one by one. Now I am storing everything together. That is the difference. Got it? Now, here, whenever you have a variable, whether it is a scalar or an array, if you try to store value again, whatever the earlier value is there, it will replace it. Okay. Now, for this, let me go to the first one variable. Here, what did we do? We are trying to print. Now, once again, what I will do is, I will say variable 1 equal to 20, and then let's print here. Okay. So what I'm doing, assigning this, printing it first, then once again I assign, this will overwrite the value whatever it is available. So now if I print, variable 1 will be 20. Okay. You can see first it was 10, but after assigning it became 20. Same way, in an array also, if you try to replace the, or if you try to add the value, see what happens. Now, if I say name of index 1 equal to, what should I say, cherry. Okay, and now when I'm printing everything, let's see what it is printing. You can see the first index has been overwritten. So that is where any point of time, if you have a variable assigning, if it already has a value, it will overwrite with the existing. Got it? So it's overwriting here. Same thing, it is overwriting here. So whatever is the latest is what it is going to take. Got it? Getting it? What is an array? How do you store? How do you use it? Any questions on this? On what is scalar variable, what is array? So depending on your need, you should now know if you're going to store a single value, use it as a scalar. If you are going to store multiple values, then you're going to use it as a array. Okay, and again, it's how you define decides whether it is a scalar or the array. Okay. Okay, let's talk about this special little later.